One of the questions that you hear constantly in the entrepreneurship world is, how do I know when to start? I've got a great idea, I've got a good plan, how do I know when to just get this thing off the ground? We just came out of the worst recession in a really long time. Is it better to start then? Do I wait and start till after things get better? And is there a right answer? Our next speaker is Josh Dennis, and he's going to talk to us about that today. He's the co-founder of Centrix and MSI. Centrix delivers social media solutions and social compliance for financial institutions, higher education, healthcare, and politics. Previously, he was the co-founder and president of Marketing Solutions Incorporated, which is MSI. It's a CRM solution for community banks and credit unions, which was acquired by Fidelity in May of 2007. Please help me in welcoming Josh Dennis.
Well, good morning. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate Tony and Jonathan for putting this together and asking me to be a part of it. I'm an extreme introvert by nature, so getting up and speaking is not one of those things that I like to do, but hopefully through sharing a little bit of my story, I hope y'all will be encouraged to go out and start new businesses, build industries, and do great things beyond what any of you can even imagine. So when I was given this topic, it's timing to start a business, and is there a right time? This is such a simple question, and as I was telling Tony earlier, it really messed with me. And I had to go back and review my life and the things that I've done in business and think, gosh, that's such a simple question. Shouldn't we be able to answer that in just a simple yes, no? I mean, shouldn't I be able to do it in 140 characters or less, and then y'all would know everything that I know? And the more I thought about it, I said, I don't even know. And I said, well, let's ask, why do we ask the question, when is the right time to start a business? And I came to the conclusion because I think that we believe the timing on creating our startup has a direct correlation to the probability of our success. So we want a math equation. We want to say, as a function of readiness, our success improves. And is that correct? Well, we're going to go through that and see. And at the end, you may not know any more than I know, but at least we'll have gone through this journey together. And so we talk about timing, and we always like to talk about the macro level. We want to look at the national economic conditions. We want to say, okay, what's going on in our country? What's going on in our state? What's going on in our city? We want to read the Wall Street Journal. We want to read TechCrunch. We want to see these trends. We want to say, okay, now is the right time for me to do this or me to do that. And does that really matter? I mean, I guess at some level we say it does matter. I mean, there are certain times when we don't want to go out and start a business because that industry is gone. I mean, we're not going to go start a car company in Detroit right now, are we? I mean, it's probably not the right time. But I also believe that those are things that are outside of our control. So you can't control what happens macro level. You're not going to control what happens in D.C. You're not going to control what happens in the state legislature in Alabama. So we're not going to worry about it. We're going to use our intelligence. We're going to use the knowledge that we've gained, and we're going to make a wise decision as to the industry we go into, the state we start, and hopefully it's Birmingham, but it might not be. Your startup may not be suited for Birmingham. It may be suited for somewhere else. But those are decisions that you will make that are really simple because you can read those. I mean, you can read books, you can see lectures, you can read articles that can give you information as to what industry and what region and those kind of things you're going to start in. But at the end of the day, I like to focus on things that we can control. And there are certain things about timing that are within our control, which will dictate not our probability of success, but our level of success. So let's focus on some of those things that are inside of our control, and let's agree that those things that are outside of control I'm not going to touch on. So once again, to answer the question, is there a right time? I'm going to give you the simple answer of yes and no. And you're going to say, well, you were supposed to give me an answer. And I'm going to say, well, there is an answer, and it's yes and no. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my experience and bring you to why I say that there is a right time and there isn't a right time. So this is not based on any type of Maxwell speeches or leadership books or anything like this. I'm going to just give you my story, and from that you're going to see some examples that I hope will help you. When I was right out of college, I was a computer engineer by training, and I'd actually had a tremendous opportunity to work for a large Unix shop back in the late 90s, and we were doing huge Sun systems distributed through multiple regions. It was amazing stuff. So anyway, I came back to Birmingham after graduating college and joined a small, fairly small banking software firm here in Birmingham. And I was real excited about it. I mean, I was young, I knew everything. I was going to conquer the world on day one. So I showed up on Monday morning, and my first day at the office, and I go in, and my boss sits me down, and he says, I have some good news and bad news. He says, the good news is, I'm excited to have you here. The bad news is we were sold on Friday. So I said, okay, well, and great, my boss is a great man, still great friends with him today, and he said, I'll understand if you want to leave. But he walked me through, what was about to happen, and we were going to spin off, we were going public, and if you remember in 1999, everybody was printing money in the stock market. I mean, you got this huge thing of IPO shares, stock options, and we all were going to get rich. Hey, this is great. I mean, this is awesome, this is what I want. So I decided to stay and stick it out. So to make this part of the story short, let me just say it, and I'll summarize it like this. We went public. We all got rich on paper. We all got broke on paper in about a week. And what did we have to show for it? Well, we had a nice jet that was sitting out at the airport that we couldn't fly anymore. We had a wonderful startup party that was tremendous, but then everybody lost jobs. So it really wasn't the home run that everybody had hoped for. But as the company there was imploding, I decided there was something that I needed to do that was different. And at that point in my life, you're given a choice, which is, given a choice to go find another job and make a salary, have a nice living, or to do something on my own. And I went through a series of iterations where I worked through and was trying to force a startup business. I was trying to force an idea to go and start. And I ended up meeting with a guy who ended up being the co-founder of MSI, and I had pitched this idea to him. And we sat down at a restaurant. I pitched this idea, and at the end of the deal, I said, what do you think about this? And we had a little group of us sitting together, and I'll never forget. He looked at me and said, "That could be one of the worst ideas I've ever heard in my life." He said, "That is an absolute dud." He said, "I'm gonna call you tomorrow and I'm gonna give you a winner." I said, "Okay." So he called me the next day, and he said, "I've got this idea. I want to do a CRM for banks and credit unions." And I said, "Well, okay." And we kind of talked about it a little bit, and I said, "Sure, all right, let's go do it." Now, a couple of things that are really important to this story that affect what as you're going through thinking about your startup. Let me give you a few things that paint the landscape of where I was at that time. I had no idea what a CRM was. I knew the buzzwords. I knew that it was a customer relationship management software. Beyond that, I didn't know squat. So, and I was young. I'm 23, 24 years old at the time, so I don't have a lot of experience. I've never actually worked in a bank. So I have no idea the intricacies of banking outside of what you can read from books and interviews with people. So I have no direct experience in banking. There was no similar product to what we were trying to offer. There were some legacy products that were in some ways tangentially related to what we were going to do, but they were not a direct replacement for them. So I had nothing to look at and say, I'm going to model my software after this one. So I'm just basically given a blank sheet of paper, said build a CRM, we're going to sell it to banks and credit unions. And oh, by the way, I have no funding. So I've got to bootstrap this, and so I don't have the luxury of going out and hiring staff. I don't have the luxury of going out and doing all these things. So, I say that because, as you're going through this, you might say, well, that's a terrible time to start a business. I mean, you have nothing going for you. Well, what we did have was we had commitment, we had a vision, and we had desire. And like David was saying, it's an action sport. So I could sit there and I could take the next 5 years and I could research, I could study, I could learn. But at the end of the day, would it really make much difference? Because at the time, I had the ability to devote what was necessary to make the business successful. I didn't have all the knowledge that I might possibly need. And my thought was, well, I'll pick it up along the way. I'll learn as I go. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to learn. And so that's what we did. And we started out like many of your businesses have or will start out, by doing what we could to bootstrap it with, borrowing office space, getting help from those those contacts that we have to lend us some guidance. And what we did was we went through the process of building software, which took 6-8 months of actually heads down development time. But we then started to slowly get into the sales cycle. Well, the timing is important because this is about this is late 2000 when we started building, and we really didn't begin adding customers until mid 2001. Well, as we all remember, we had a catastrophic event in the end of 2001. Well, that event not only shook our nation, but it shook the financial industry. So here I am, a fledgling company, barely getting by, barely covering the lease on the office space, and now we have to deal with a tragedy to the country that affects the country as a whole, and also the ability for me to build this business. And at that time, you're going to be faced with questions about, okay, did I make a bad choice? Was the timing wrong for me to enter the business? Well, and once again, you have to then question yourself and say, well, I'm not doing this because of what's happening nationally. I still believe in the vision. I still believe in what I'm building, and I still have the commitment to deliver this to the place that we would consider success. And success, once again, is going to be measured by your own standard. So your standard for success might not be somebody else's, and that's important in that process. So we pushed through. We pushed through. We continued to devote our time, our resources, our energy to building this business, even though we had a tremendous amount of uncertainty going on around us. And the payoff for that was that we got through the next couple of years, which provided a boom time in banking, which allowed us to grow at a rate that we really never expected. The next 6 years were tremendous. We added customers as quickly as we could. We increased pricing as quickly as we could. We made as many mistakes as we could. But along the way, we also had a great time. And finally, we created enough of a nuisance for the big players in that space that Fidelity Information Services, who at the time was the second largest financial services provider in the U.S., decided to acquire us. Now, let me say this. I think when it comes to timing on starting the business, one of the things that may be more important is the timing to exit the business. Because by that point in our life cycle, we had exhausted ourselves building this business. We had spent now 7 years of our life just with our hands dirty, building this thing from the ground up. And to couple that with the fact that now we're about to go through another slowdown in our industry, and that's when we had to look at it and say, okay, is this the time to exit? I look back on it now and say, I'm very thankful that we exited when we did. I'm not saying that we wouldn't still be today, enjoying success, but it would have been like going back those first few years and having to put in that exact same level of effort, the exact same level of commitment that we hadn't had to in those years in the middle. So I say that because I honestly believe that the timing on the exit may be more important than the timing on the entrance. Now let me give you another example, a little bit more recent, which hopefully illustrates that that you may think the timing's all right and you still don't enjoy the success that you think. So when we started Centrix Information Solutions, the timing couldn't have been better. I mean, if you look at it, and people are going to say, hey man, the timing was great on that. And we're going into social media monitoring and compliance. So when we decided to start, there was no Hootsuite. And our first offering was we were going to be a social media aggregator, because the additional offerings that we needed all were built around an aggregation engine. So there is no Hootsuite. And so we built one, and we released it, and we had some usage out of it. Then Hootsuite comes along. And of course, competing from Birmingham, Alabama on a bootstrap versus Silicon Valley with big VC, it sometimes isn't a fair fight. But that really wasn't our ultimate goal anyway. It was just kind of a stepping stone to where we were going. So we went through a couple of iterations and morphed a little bit, and we ended up settling through just a fortuitous meeting with an athletic coach. We decided we settled primarily on the athletic space. Well, at the time, the athletic space was huge, and it still is today if you read all the papers. So, we got to see all of the issues that are happening within athletics when kids are tweeting. They're saying some just silly things. And they're growing up at an age that they think it's acceptable. So they're going to say anything, and they're going to put it out there, and then it's going to reflect negatively on their school. So we were there with the perfect solution at the perfect time. The challenge is that you can read in the papers what's needed, but if the customer, the athletic departments in this case, aren't willing to pay for it, then you really don't have an ability to achieve what we would consider the same level of success that we've had in the past. So in that case, we looked at timing as the indicator to start the business. And what we found was that we didn't achieve the level of success that we thought from the timing that we chose. And so, that makes me go back and reflect and say, well, why is that? And that's one of the things that I think is important on, when you choose to start your business. Don't necessarily focus on when it's perfect. Don't focus on when, the Wall Street Journal tells you this trend is coming next year. The timing is, when can you best execute your strategy? When are you ready? Not when is the market ready? So let me give you a couple of things that I've found that really, I think are timing points for you as you start on this. And these are things within your control. What is your stability within your life? I mean, do you have the support network to go through the anxiety and the struggle, the pain, and the dedication and the hard work that's going to come? It's not easy. I mean, you just don't open the doors and people come in. This isn't the post office mentality. You don't just get customers. You don't just get revenue. You don't just get people to give you money. It's going to require all of you. So do you have the support network around you to help you through these times? Do you have the financial stability to weather what's coming? And it doesn't mean you have to have the personal resources, but do you have the ability to survive for the foreseeable future so that you can accomplish your dream? And it doesn't mean, you may end up eating rice and noodles every night. You might. That's okay. You might end up going out and getting angels to give you money. That's great. You may end up with a business that is so wonderful and is such a great opportunity that people are pouring money into you. Wonderful. It doesn't matter which route you go. You just have to have the ability to sustain. When is your vision complete? To me, that is one of the things that is so important is understanding your vision. And we talk about elevator pitches, and we talk about, can you tell me what you're doing, on a note card, or as we ride up 10 stories on the elevator. That's going to dictate where you go, who you partner with, how you raise money, how you spend money. It's going to dictate everything. And I think you have to have that clear vision. That clear vision has to be something I ask you today, you tell me. I ask you next week, you tell me the same thing. I ask you next month, you tell me the same thing. It can't be a meander through the woods. It can't be chasing rabbits down holes. It has to be something that's ingrained in you that is, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to deliver. This is what my passion is. And then finally, your commitment. I mean, is it something you're doing because you think you want to do it? Or is it something you're doing because it's who you are? I mean, there are those of us that we know that it's who we are. And we know that the building, the shaping, the forming of these businesses, whether it be from the entire structure of the business, or if it's from one aspect, if it's from sales, you're a tremendous sales and marketing, or you're a tremendous technologist. But you have this innate desire to do that, and it eats you up if you're not. And that's going to lead to your commitment to this path that you've chosen. Because just like anything else that we do, we have to do it with commitment. And timing your startup is just like any other decision. You're going to do your homework. You're going to do your analysis. You're going to prepare your contingencies. You're going to prepare your mind. You're going to do all of this preparation. At some point in time, you've got to get off the bench. At some point in time, you have to say, I'm going. That's it. I've done enough. We can always fall into the paralysis through analysis. We can always fall into the, well, I want it to be different. I want it to be better. The timing isn't right. I can always find an excuse not to do something. How many of you can find an excuse to do something? How many of you can say, okay, I know there's an uncertainty. I don't know what's out there. I don't know how hard it's going to be. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to push through. I'm going to do this. And, in the great words of Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber, just go, man. And, let me give you to take us out of the business world and to tell you that some of these things that I have learned, I've learned from not necessarily starting businesses or running businesses, but that I learned them from every walk of life. And I'm also a pilot, and I grew up in a family with my dad is a pilot as well, and he used to always put stories in terms of aviation. I never understood it. I was growing up as a kid, everything would relate to an aviation story, and I never got it. But now I do. Because there are so many parallels to what we go through as entrepreneurs, what we go through as husbands, fathers, wives. It parallels in so many walks of life. So, let me give you this example. Let's say you're going to go fly somewhere, and you're going to go fly with me, and we have to go somewhere. We know we need to go pick a city. We need to go to Austin, Texas tomorrow. Well, the weather out there is terrible. We got low ceilings. We got turbulence. We have a lot of things that don't make the environment ideal for us going tomorrow. But what we're going to do is we're going to prepare. You're going to rely on me to prepare my plans. You're going to rely on me to prepare the airplane. You're going to rely on me to do everything I can. We're going to get out there. We're going to be ready. We're going to do everything that I know through my knowledge, my experience, through books, through everything else. We're going to get in this airplane and we're going to start rolling down the runway. Up until the point when we actually get airborne and we get the gear up and we start climbing out, we have a choice. We have a choice. We don't have to go. We can stay on the ground. We can stay where we know there's nothing that can happen to us here. We're fine. We might feel in a car crash back to going home, but other than that, we're okay. We don't have the unknowns of entering this big black cloud. But at the moment that I have committed, at the moment that I have gotten this airplane off the ground and I've gone into this cloud, I have nowhere to go but ahead. I can't look back now. There's nothing behind me now. Everything's in front of me. So I've had to make that commitment at that point to go. And from that point forward, the only thing I'm thinking about is, how do I get where I'm going? And that's what I'm telling you. The timing could be different. The timing can always be better. It doesn't mean it's not right for you to chase your dream, for you to make the commitment, and for you to do what you need to do for your success. And if you do that, then, you know what? We'll all sit back and applaud. And we'll all know the struggles you're going through. We'll all know the joy that comes when you reach that goal that you're going to. So now that my time is up, I will turn it back to Jeremy. I appreciate y'all letting me speak for a few minutes.